Good evening, all. It's Devora Krasnianski from Adai Ad, and I'm really excited about tonight's talk. I had a lot of requests for a topic like this, and I'm really excited that we got Dr. Shmuel Brachfeld to talk to us about this very important topic of preparing for your role as husband. And I just want to talk briefly about Adai Ad. Our mission at Adai Ad is to empower couples and to enrich relationships, and that starts even before the marriage relationship begins. And to that end, we at Adai Ad share education and awareness and support for dating and through marriage. And through our website, workshops such as this one, our daily relationship tip and coaching. And you can visit us on our website at adaiad.org. That's ADAIAD.org. And I'm really gratified that we're doing this talk together with Mask. And you can always reach out to Mask when you're looking for support for any issues with mental health, marriage, children, or anything. So you can reach them at maskparents.org. And tonight, I'm really, really gratified that we have Dr. Shmuel Brachfeld to talk to us about this important topic of the husband's role. Dr. Brachfeld is a clinical psychologist in private practice in Lakewood, New Jersey. He specializes in treating trauma, addictions, and chronic physical and mental illness, along with helping loved ones of those dealing with challenges cope. He works through an attachment-focused perspective, helping clients develop a safe and secure way of managing themselves and the world around them. So thank you, Dr. Brachfeld. Let's just jump right into such an important topic.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me, and glad that I can join, and hope everybody gains, tefillah is that everybody gains from this, from this webinar tonight. So I think very important is to start off with a little bit of a few disclaimers. The first one is that I'm going to be discussing several principles of how to create an effective relationship and marriage. Now, when we're talking about these topics as to people who are not married, it's very challenging. It's a very challenging thing to do, because it's when you're not in the experience, it's just all ideas and thoughts, and very nice and dandy, but I'm not in the experience, so there's no way of actually carrying it through. So hopefully we're going to be able to plant seeds right now that once you do get the experience of marriage, these ideas will come and be like, oh, I remember hearing about this. I remember hearing this idea. I remember hearing this, and I remember hearing how I could approach this and deal with it. Now, also very important is to realize that my perspective is just one of many perspectives. And while I feel very strongly about the ideas that I'm going to say, there are a lot of other ideas out there of how to approach marriage and create a safe and secure marriage. And it's being open to learn from others is very important as well. And take what works for you, and what doesn't work for you, you can leave it alone. Now, one thing I do want to say is that a lot of advice that we get out there about marriage is based on what we call stereotypes. Because before we get married, we're just dealing with the general concept of women, of girls, of marriage, of how to deal with marriage. A lot of the advice is given in generalities, where they're not catered to individuals. So sometimes people will say that you'll hear that women are all like to talk to their friends a lot, and then somebody will get married and say, my wife doesn't talk. How come she's not talking to her friends? And or anything else that when we give it our stereotype. So while stereotypes are great to give a lot of conceptual ideas, sometimes they serve a counterproductive purpose, because we're not talking about the individual here. So what I'm going to try to do right here today is not give specifics about how do I deal with a woman, how do I deal with my wife, how do I deal with the opposite gender, more of how do I approach marriage from my perspective, that no matter who I'm married to, I can create the best marriage for myself and for my wife out there. So the rules will apply generally apply to no matter what type of person I'm married to and who I'm married to. And with that being said, also, I'm not getting involved in the talking about how to go about dating, or how to go about being engaged, or how to go about getting married. It's more of an approach of how do I approach being in a relationship in an effective way. So with that being said, I want to start off with a little story. So I'm taking the liberty to say that the story is because it's a story about my grandfather, whose yahrzeit happens to be coming up. And if I'm trying to recreate the dates, and I think this story, the yahrzeit of this story is either today or tomorrow. So it's like this story is like is really will set the tone for us. So my grandfather was, and my grandparents, my grandfather and my grandmother had this wonderful, amazing marriage. They were really, you saw that they were there for each other. They cared about each other. There was an understanding of each other and a love that just shone in every interaction that they came of a love and a respect, and like you felt that warmth in that relationship. And it was one of the things that stood out to me was like what I was saying. My grandfather was in the hospital in his deathbed, connected to all these machines, pale, sick. And I was standing outside the hospital room with my grandmother and looking into the room, looking in the window, looking into the room. And she turns to me and she goes, "Look at him. Isn't he handsome?" And I was like taken so aback, like, I mean, he's my grandfather, and I looked at my grandfather as my grandfather, but to see him in that matzav as handsome, that was like, where'd that come from? But it showed me that there's something that's being seen here that really can probably not even be put into words, that my grandmother is seeing something, a relationship, a connection that's so deep that she can see past all the wires and all the pale skin and all the beeping and everything and say, "Isn't he handsome?" And so a couple of years later, when one of my cousins, Shmuel Brachfeld, I actually spoke about this. I mentioned the story, and I started telling, as a Shmuel Brachfeld, what marriage, we have the paradigm of what a beautiful marriage could look like. And my grandmother came over to me and said something even more powerful than that. And her message to me was really, really powerful. And she goes, "You make it sound like it was so easy that we had this beautiful marriage. And it was just went and just happened on its own." She says, "It wasn't easy. We had to put a lot of hard work into it. We came to America, got married, came to this country not knowing the language, not having a penny in our pockets, having lost our entire family, no one to lean on, no one to care about us. We had each other. We knew we had each other to survive, and we put in the work and energy into ourselves and into our marriage to make it work." And that's why at the end of it, it looked like that we were able to that we had this beautiful marriage, and I was able to see this handsome person behind all the wiring. And just the story is enough, and we can end everything here. But I'm going to build up the story and take it to the next level. So ultimately, the question becomes, why marriage? Why get married? And we can all have our own ideas of why get married. And we can all say that we get married because the Torah tells us to, because that's what our society expects from us, because we get to, and many other things, from the physical to get to have somebody take care of us. There's many reasons that we can come up to get married, but at the end of the day, why is this institute of marriage so important in the world? And it really goes back to what the Torah tells us about marriage. And the Torah starts off with Adam Harishon being created, and the Rebbeinu Shalom says right away, the first thing he says, "Lo yitoiv ha'adam liyas levadai." It's not good. Lo yitoiv is really the kicker here. It's not good for a person to be on his own. The Maral uses the language of Lo yitoiv, and he points out that in all other Sheshim Bereshis, when we speak about all other days of creation, when Hashem created something, he says, "Vayar Hashem ki toiv." Hashem saw that it was good. Now, when Hashem saw that it was good, the Maral says that means that he saw that it reached its goal, it achieved its perfection. This is the way it should be, and this is the way it's supposed to be. When Adam was created, when man was created, it doesn't say that Hashem saw it was good. The first thing Hashem says is "Leitaif," it's not good. That means that Hashem is saying the state that man is in right now by himself, this is not going to reach the state of man, the optimal state of man and human being should be in. There needs to be something more than that. And what is that more? I will make him a helper that will stand with him. Different explanations what the word connectai means, but a man to reach his ultimate state of being needs to have somebody else with him, a man or a woman actually, need to have somebody else to be there with them, to share their lives with. Now, the Piasetzner Rebbe in the Sefer on Savaziris, which proclaimed as Kalman Shapiro, who wrote this in the late 1930s. He writes a very fascinating thing. And he talks about something that the Baal Shem Tov mentions, and he says that there's a pasuk that says, Anochi omed ben Hashem u'beinechem. Moshe Rabbeinu is speaking, and he's saying, I am standing between Hashem and you. And the Baal Shem Tov points out on the language of Anochi, he says that sometimes Anochi, me, as a person, I myself can get in the way between Hashem and myself. Me having too much of an ego, the best way to understand it, can get in the way of me serving Hashem the right way. And the way the Piasetzner Rebbe explains it, he says, is how does somebody get to the level of having too much of an ego? So such a person is a person who looks around the world and says, I have no one to fend for me but myself. I have no one to rely on but myself. Somebody like that who is lonely, who is going through the world by himself, ends up looking at the world that I need to fend for myself and take care of myself. And therefore, I have to take care of myself. I can't allow others' ideas, other people, other things to influence me, because I have to stand up for myself and assert myself in a way that ultimately becomes unhealthy, where there is no space for anything else but myself. And that no space for anything else but myself, because I don't have life to share with anybody else, gets in the way of a person connecting with Hashem in the right way, connecting with Hashem in a way of growing, in a way of becoming the person that's connected with Hashem in life. The anochi, that overinflated ego of having to defend in the world by myself, gets in the way of my relationship with Hashem. So the reason why a person won't reach his tachlis by himself is because, based on this, is because he is not looking outside of himself and looking at how do I grow. He becomes too internally focused and not about growth and development and becoming bigger and better than myself. So the Rebbeinu Shalom said, I'm putting you in a relationship to not get stuck in that, to get bigger, to get better. Now, again, that's wonderful. So why didn't Hashem just create a world with friends? Why didn't Hashem just create a world with business partners? Why didn't Hashem just create a world with children? Why does the relationship of marriage become the epitome of to tell me that this is the way a person grows? So this is another element of and another part of Sefer Bereshis is when we talk about where it gives the mission statement of what marriage is about, and it says Al therefore, because Hashem created man and a woman, therefore a person should leave his family, meaning leave his father and his mother, leave his home where he grew up in, and cling to his wife, and they should become one flesh. They should become one. They will become one unit. And there are different explanations of what it means they become one flesh. Rashi says that the becoming one flesh means that these two people have children together, and their children share their DNA. They're becoming one through their children. The Ramban argues on that. The Ramban has questions on that, and he says doesn't mean that. He means that they actually live an intimate life together. They share their lives together in such a way where intimately they become one, and they become one being through their intimate lives. And then there's Adai Ad who says that the way they become one is through feeling each other in each other's heart. And my Rebbe, Shmuel Brachfeld, always told us that this is not really a machlekes. It's not really an argument. We're talking about 3 different stages of marriage. Stage 1 of marriage, when you get married, it's just you and your wife. You don't have an emotional connection. You don't have a life together yet where we share common interests. The thing that builds us together is the intimate, physical, intimate life that we share. We play games together. We go shopping together. We share a physical, intimate life together, and we enjoy each other's company. And we start learning about each other. That's stage 1 in marriage. Stage 2 in marriage is then we have kids, and we have a common goal and a common interest on working on things that in life itself, we start working through life struggles together on the same page. And we grow through that because we become bigger, that we're not just physically connected, we're connected in our mission, in our life, in the way we're living our lives, and how we give that over to others. And then kids get married, and they fly out of the nest, and we're left with ourselves. And marriage doesn't end there, because marriage continues even once the kids are out of the house, and we're left with just us 2. The physical, we're older. It's not there that much. The kids aren't, the common goal of kids and being busy with that, paying the bills, not as important anymore because the kids are on their own. What are we left with? We're left with that we grew so much through our journey till now, is that right now I became so much bigger that me and my wife feel each other in our heart, that we get each other so well that we could just look at each other in the eye and know that we're here and how each other feel. There is a story of Rabbi Yaakov Yosef Herman. He took, Rucham Shane writes in the book All for the Boss, where they went, Rabbi and Mrs. Herman took her daughter Ruchama and her chassan to get their marriage license, but Ruchama was underage, so they needed to sign off. And in the office that they were sitting in, Ruchama was sitting next to her husband, next to her chassan, and Rabbi and Mrs. Herman were sitting on the opposite ends of the table. So Ruchama turns to her father and says, "See, me and Maishi, my chassan, are much closer to each other than you and Mommy, who are sitting on the opposite ends of the table." And Rabbi Yaakov Yosef Herman turns to her and says, "No, you got it wrong. You and your husband need to sit next to each other because you're just starting out. You don't have enough background yet to have that emotional connection. Me and your mother, we can be on the opposite ends of the world and we would know what each other is thinking and feeling." And that's the process of where we start off with. We start off our marriage with a very physical based idea of intimacy, of enjoy a connection, of being with each other and enjoying each other and learning how to connect with each other in a very basic way. And it grows through that till it gets to the point of we become much bigger than ourselves. And ultimately, really, we learn through life, as just like my Rabbi Berkowitz always points out, it's just like a little kid enjoys the lollipop and will go crazy over lollipop, even if it's dirty and disgusting and slobbered over, we'll enjoy that lollipop. Yet when we get older, we realize the lollipop is not something we should run for. But we enjoy steak and we enjoy a good wine, right? And as we get older, our tastes become much more sophisticated. So too, in the physical realm of the world, we realize that what I thought was important in my marriage and my life when I was younger, as I grow and I become bigger, I realize there's so much more and so much bigger and so much greater. And that physical thing that I thought, or that lollipop that I had then, pales in comparison to what I feel right now. And that really, if we approach marriage in this way of coming into marriage as an investment, I'm going to work on it, and I can grow to become so much bigger than myself. And there's nothing that compares to it. It will take hard work, as my grandmother said, and it will take effort, and it will take energy, but we can get there. That makes them, all the work that I put in and all the pain that I deal with and all the the ups and downs of it, worth it. And when we and helps us continue to grow. So now, having said that introduction, and how do we get there? What do we do ultimately? So it really comes back to going back to understanding in reality what is a relationship. Right? We spoke about right. The only way I'll get somewhere is if I develop a relationship. So what are relationships? So now if we look around the world is built on relationships. The world functions on relationships. The most basic things of relationships are, which is a connection between two people. A relationship is a connection between two people. Some relationships are evident, some relationships aren't evident, some relationships take a lot of work, some relationships don't take a lot of work. So for example, given the fact that I have milk in my refrigerator is based on a relationship that somebody upstate New York has cows and he wants to make money, and he sells the cows he milks them and he sells it to the manufacturer, to the distributor, and the distributor brings it to the grocery store and I buy it from the grocery store. So now I by default have a relationship with that guy in the farm who has those cows, because of me he's able to live, and because of him I'm able to live. Now, it's not a relationship that we know about, but it's a connection between me and him that went through many steps, but we're in a way connected. Because if I stop buying, he makes less money, back and forth. And if he stops selling, I don't have milk. So we're connected. Then that's a relationship of the world functioning in a general way. But as we get closer to us personally, we have a relationship with the community that we live in. The community that we live in creates an environment for us to be able to live the life that we want to live, to thrive in the life we want to live. We have shuls, we have yeshivas, we have institutes that help make life easier, and we're connected to them through our personal involvement in them, through the services that they give us, through our monthly checks that we send to them. But we're connected to them when we have a relationship with them. And then we get closer to it. Then we have relationships with our business partners or people that we're doing business with, where that's a little bit more closer than just I go to shul three times a day and just happen down there, or I give a check to my son's yeshiva. We see each other every day. We're actually invested in the same goal. We're trying to make money. We care about each other and a little bit of thing. So there's a deeper connection to that. And then we get closer than that, and we have a relationship with our friends. Who are friends, it's not about one specific thing. We're just friends because we like each other. We enjoy being in each other's company. And then step closer to that is we have our family, who we may not even be friends with, but we have a relationship with them, we have a connection with them because we live in the same house. We come from the same image or the same structure. We understand each other because we've been through a lot of the experiences the same, and we're actually here for each other because we just feel like there's a certain responsibility for that. And then we get even closer, and then we have the relationship of parents. And relationship of parents is literally survival. I mean, if not for our parents, we wouldn't make it to past being a baby. Our relationship with our parents gives us the foundation to stand on in our lives. And the parents influence almost everything that we do in our lives. So these are the relationships that we have. And now if we start exploring all of these relationships, I can start giving you an example of, let's say, a parent, and ask you to explain to me the relationship of a mother and a child. And you'll tell me the mother, my mother, she makes me supper every night. And I can say, oh, shoot, cool, I'll save a lot of headache. I'll hire a cook for you. No, she buys me clothing. Okay, no problem. I'll hire a personal shopper for you. No. She also makes sure that I make it to the bus in time. Okay, I'll hire somebody to be on top of your schedule. Oh, she cleans up the house. I'll hire a maid. And we start thinking about it, and we realize, no, those things that mothers do don't explain what mothers are. I like to use the mashal and to take this mashal a step further. Instead of two people are going at boy and a girl are going out, and they decide, the boy decides that he's ready to propose. So he tells her, the normal question is, will you marry me? This guy decides to be a little smarter than that. He goes, and he turns to the girl and he says, Chani, would you want to be my cook, my maid, my alarm clock in the morning, my mashgiach to make sure that I learn, and so on and so forth, of all the things that he does. What would this girl hearing that to tell him? With all the shame and negia that we do and the things, she would slap him in the face, because this is not, nobody wants that. But let's say she also is as crazy as him and answers back, yeah, sure, Chaim, and you'll be my bank keeper. You'll be you'll be the guy who gets up every morning and goes to work, make sure the bills are paid, takes out the garbage every night, make sure, and even lets me spend his money. And he would look at her and go, whoa, what's going on here? So, but then isn't the question, will you marry me? And the answer, yes. Doesn't it imply that already? Doesn't it imply that we each other are going to have obligations to each other and we're going to fulfill them? I'm expecting you to have obligations towards me, and you're expecting me to have obligations towards you and fulfill them. So why are we so ready to answer yes to marriage, or pop the question to marriage, and we get excited about it, we say Mazel, when we should just slap each other in the face, like, why on earth would I do this for you? And the answer lies in the fact that there's something about what we call a connection, a relationship, that cannot be quantified in things that we do, or even words or concepts. A relationship is something that we call an experience. Being in a relationship is not a 1 + 1 = 2 thing. It's not something that has a logic to it. But when we're in it and we experience it, it makes so much sense. Yes, when I ask you, will you marry me? And you answer back, yes, it implies a lot of things. Yes, we will have obligations towards each other. But all those obligations are nothing. Why? Because we just made a commitment to each other, to be connected to each other, and to value each other and be in this thing called a relationship together. And when we're in this relationship together, all these things are just byproducts of it. They're part of the relationship. And we have to figure out how to make the logistics behind them, yes. But it's all part in the concept of a relationship. So the relationship, to define a relationship in a concept of this is what it is very hard. But a relationship, when we look at it as a connection between people who get to experience each other, and then look at all the relationships we have in our lives and realize each one has its own unique experience. And the closer they get to us, the deeper the experience of this relationship becomes, ultimately till we get to the relationship between a husband and a wife, which is the deepest, most intimate and full-on relationship we'll ever experience in our lives, is that it's not the logic behind it, it's the experience of being in it. So when I am engaging in a relationship, I'm not looking to just fulfill my obligation. Yeah, I was told to buy my wife flowers. I was told to say a nice word to her. I'm looking to enhance and build this thing called an experience of us being together. Now, when we have that experience, first of all, it's very hard to explain again if you don't have that experience. But if we look back at all our relationships, again, using all the other relationships as a paradigm, we can start seeing what is my relationship and my experience in these relationships. And we'll get on, and as towards the end, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but what is my experience being in the relationships that I'm in? And how am I me in those relationships? And I can use that as the muscle, or give me an understanding of might be another level. What's the next level for a relationship? Now, how do I create that experience between us? Is the next question we have. So if this is a relationship, first of all, one of the most interesting things about, before we go on, one of the most interesting things about marriage, and Renee Weinberg used to say this. He said when he was younger, he used to think the ultimate mashal, the ultimate example of a relationship between Hashem and a person is a relationship between father and child, or parents and children. And he would use that as the example of, right, just like you always love your child, and there's this deep connection with your child, no matter what, no matter where, no matter how. And if your child strays, there's a pain. And he would use that as to explain that's the relationship between Hashem and the person. And he said, as he got older, he realized something much deeper. He says the ultimate relationship between a Hashem and a person is the relation of a relationship between a husband and a wife. I mean, it goes back to what we said, like, tell you, if we can't reach our tachlis, we can't reach our ultimate without understanding what a relationship between husband and wife is, because we don't understand. Gives us a much deeper realization of what a connection with Hashem is. What's the ultimate? Why is that the ultimate relationship? First of all, because it encompasses, it's all encompassing, encompasses a connection on all levels, but also it's because it's a relationship based on choice. Every day when I wake up in the morning, I'm choosing again to be in this relationship and maintain and put the work into to maintain and grow in the level of connection that I did. It's not about I have to do it because it's my kid, because I have no other choice, or because there's this natural love between a father and a child. It's about I made a choice to love this person. I may have thought I had reasons when I was going out why I like this person, but it's really a choice to love this person and be in this experience with them together. And it's a new choice every single day. I want to continue being in this relationship, and I want to continue investing in it to build it over and over again. And that's why the relationship between husband and wife, where I'm actively making a choice to work on it day in and day out, and grow from our experiences together, becomes the ultimate mashal of a connection between Hashem and us, and therefore it becomes the thing that we have to realize that every day when I get out of bed and I say my dani, I'm also saying, today I'm making another choice to deepen my experience of connection. So how do we build this connection? Now that I'm making this choice to build this connection, how do I do that? So one of the important principles, and we may end up having to go through them a little bit quicker than time allows, because it's a lot. One of the most important principles is to realize that we are building an intimate relationship. It's we're becoming one. It's me and my wife, me and my spouse, and nothing else. Well, now what I mean nothing else is, it means that for me and my wife against the world. Now, against the world doesn't mean I have to go out and attack the world, but it means that I'm creating what they call in attachment theory, a couple bubble, where me and my wife become one, and we live within this bubble. That in this bubble, nothing can pull us apart. Where I can go out and have a stressful day, I can go out and have to deal with everything that I deal with, and she can go out and deal with everything I have to deal with. And at the end of the day, we come home and we know we can let go to each other. We know we can rely on each other. We know that if I need things to be taken care of because it's important to me right now, I have somebody at home that I can rely on. She knows that if she needs something taken care of, she has somebody out there that she can call anytime and he'll pick up the phone. He's there for us. We're creating this security, this world where us two are going to carry each other through this world, no matter what, no matter where, no matter how. Now, what that means ultimately is the part of the pasuk. It says, "Yaziv Adam is avav es imay," to let go of your parents, to let go of your father and mother, is to be able to realize that right now, the relationship that matters the most to me is me and my wife. That means when we go out there and there's something that happens, that while me and my wife may have disagreements, and we don't always have to agree, and we can fight, and we'll get to that, hopefully get to that. But when we go out there, nothing is going to stand between me and her. Not my mother, not my father, not the ideas that I grew up with, not the ideas that she grew up with. we are totally here for each other, that even if we're out there and a conversation comes up that me and my wife may not agree with and may not see on the same eye, but I'm going to be willing to defend her to her death, to my death, because she's my wife. And I'm going to, even though in private I may disagree with her, in public, she's my wife. And I will be there with her no matter what, no matter where, no matter how. She knows I have her back and I know she has my back. That's what we call a couple bubble. And that's an attitude of approaching it as like, we are both here, we are both here for each other to just lean on each other and be there for each other. Now we develop this couple bubble, takes development. Now, one of the first things that a lot of the things that people talk about today is love languages, understanding each other's love language. I'm not going to go through all the love languages, but one of the ways we develop this couple bubble is learning to understand each other, and not just the words that we're saying, again, but we're talking about experience being here, and what it means for you, for me to be here, and how do I convey it to you for you to hear it in the way you need to hear it. Now, everybody has their own language. Everybody has their own way of talking, and words for me might mean words differently than for you. So I have to, I have to look out for my wife and ask myself, what is her love language? How do I show her in a way that she will see that I'm connected to her? Now, I can do, this is a famous thing in Fiddler on the Roof, right? The question is, I don't know the characters' names, right? The question is, do you love me? And the answer becomes, of course I love you. I do all your laundry, I do everything for you. Of course I love you. And the struggle of that song becomes, yes, you may do all these things. And yes, all these things may show you love me. But how do I see your love? Now, for some people, it might mean cooking and doing my laundry might be showing love. But for others, it might not be that. For other people, it might mean saying the words, I love you. For other people, it might mean buying flowers and saying, I bought this just for you. For other people, it might mean sitting next to each other on the couch, even though we're not talking to each other while we're both reading books, but we're just sitting next to each other and feeling each other's presence there. For other people, it might mean that you said good morning and good night to me when you left. When you left, you said have a good day. When you came home, you said hello to me. For other people, it might just mean sitting down to eat together. Everybody has their own thing that makes them feel intimate and connected with the other person. And it's not about, well, one of the important rules is when we're going to discuss is me being able to freely express what my love language is to my spouse and to my loved one. But it's also about me trying to learn, become the expert in her and learn what are her love languages? What are things that make her feel cherished, make her feel special, make her feel this experience of being in love with and connected with each other? And a very important thing is that we learn out, if we're talking about the beginning of marriage is about the physical intimacy. This is one of the first steps of physical intimacy, is being able to learn what each other's language of connection is. And we can be on the same page in hashkafa, and we can be on the same page in how we want to raise our kids, and we can be on the same page and there are goals in life, and we can have similar types of personalities, and everything connect on paper for the shidduch to go through, and it really made a lot of sense. But if I don't take that time to learn each other's love language, all of that can make sense, and we can have a beautiful shidduch on paper, but in real life experience, we won't get the experience of really getting intimate and knowing each other in a real way. Now, if we're talking about this, it's also important to note the other side of it. And the other side of it is that just because I'm getting involved in an intimate relationship and really being here for somebody, that doesn't mean that I give up on myself. It doesn't mean I lose myself. If I get involved in a relationship where I lose myself, it either starts creeping in on me, and it ultimately eats at my heart, and I start feeling like there's nobody here for me, and I have to fend for myself, and I don't develop a relationship, or it turns into something what we call a codependent relationship, where I have no identity besides everything that I do for you, and then my whole identity becomes the things that I'm doing for you, and I can't see past that. And then I enable negative behaviors. We don't push each other to become the best possible us, because there is no us. There's just you. It's totally you. Us, we. And my mother hates when we say this, but when we're a we couple, and we're in this together, it's because there's a me and a you. I have my things that I bring to the table. You have your things that you bring to the table. And just because we're married, we're us, that us includes, it's not 1 + 1 = 2. It becomes one. It's more of like we become a bigger one. Where I can be myself and you can be yourself, and in such a real way that this us becomes a connection that's linked. Our two boundaries and circles are linked to each other. So what that means is that I have a right to let my wife know what works and what doesn't work for me, and she has a right to let me know, and she should let me know. One of the important things is we don't want in developing a relationship is that everybody feels comfortable being themselves in this relationship, where nobody feels like they're forced to do anything, where everybody gives consent to everything that's being done. Where if I want my wife to do something, goes to a certain place or be in a certain place, yes, it may be, sometimes it might be uncomfortable for her to do it because she may not want to go there, might not want to go to or do that thing, and she might be able to want to say yes because it's important to you, or she has a right to say no. You know what? That really doesn't work for me, and that's okay, and vice versa too. And while we may sometimes have to come up with practical applications or practical solutions to these problems, which we also have to be able to realize that everybody here has a right to say what they want and express themselves and be heard in an effective way. And we can then take it into consideration and ultimately decide what is our next approach, which I want to come back to in 1 minute. I'm not sure where we are on time. And then there's a second point also, is that if we're talking about intimacy, we're talking about connection, right? And when we're talking about tznius, especially, and things, especially physical intimacy, a lot of times we get confused between privacy and secrecy. And it's also a very important distinction to know, because while we're building what we call a private life, a life of intimate, where a husband and wife are connected 24/7 in a way that nobody else can see, from the physical to the spiritual to the emotional. It's beautiful because it's private. It's beautiful because it belongs just to me and my wife. But it should never be about secrets. The difference between privacy and secrets is that ultimately, should word get out that I'm engaging in this, I'm doing this, I have this type of connection with my wife, me and my wife are having this wonderful relationship. In other words, should somebody be privy to see that? Well, it's private and nobody should see it, but should there be an exceptions rule where they can, we can be okay with that. A secret is something that we're like, it will never be okay for somebody to see that. Now, secrets can sometimes take the form of where one spouse is doing something detrimental to the other spouse, and the other spouse feels scared to let other people know because I can't let other people know what's going on in my marriage. Where there might be mental illness going on, where there might be struggles with other things in marriage going on. And at those points, sometimes we do need help, and sometimes we do need to include others, and sometimes we do need to bring in mentors, rabbanim, parents, other people, doctors, lawyers, other people to help us navigate this struggle that we're going through. Yes, it's a struggle that me and my wife are going through, but it's always beneficial to lean on my supportive environment around me, where I can get the hadracha that I need, I get the guidance that I need. And there's no fear in reaching out to somebody and letting them know, this is what's going on in my marriage. Yes, it's private, but sometimes privacy is okay to be broken through the right people, because it's not okay to keep secrets. So if we're struggling with things and we feel like we need to keep it secret because it's not tznius. Remember, at certain points, it's time to reach out for help and get the help that you need. How are we doing on time? Because just want to. Okay, so I really want to come to. I think I just gave a very general overview, and I think we're going to skip over a lot of things because there is a lot to say, and there's too much to pack into the 45 minutes. I want to come to the practical application. Ultimately, I'm in shidduchim right now. I'm getting married. What can I do right here, right now, to help me prepare to get involved in this relationship and really know how to be there to give my wife, to my wife. Now, one of the first steps is to know yourself, what we call self-awareness. Self-awareness means to know, first of all, what are my strong points? What are things that I feel I can do, I am good at, my talents, my abilities, my good qualities? What are those things? And also, what are the things that I have a hard time with? What are the things that I'm struggling with? And to explore all those things. What are the things that I'm struggling? And everybody struggles with different things. Some people struggle with midas. Some people struggle with finding, what they're good at. Some people struggle with communicating with other people. And really knowing all these things. Now, I don't have to fix myself before I get married. But if I know myself, then when I get into the marriage, I'm coming in with my eyes wide open for myself, that I am ready to teach my wife who I am in a real way and help her be there for me in the way I need her. And if she knows herself, she's ready to be there to let me know who she is and let me be here for her in a real way where we can actually develop that relationship. The second thing is learning ultimately based off of this is, how are my relationships in the world right now? How do I interact with the world? What are my connections with the world right now? Am I a loner? Am I a guy who enjoys my space myself? Am I a guy who is a life of the party? What gets me anxious? What gets me nervous? What gets me angry? When do I feel like it's too little? When do I feel like it's too much? Being able to see how I relate to the world will give me an ability to see and connect with the world around, with the world, understand how I sit in the world, and give me that ability to see what I need to work on and how I can bring myself into a real relationship in a way that I can connect with the other person in a real way. And that's exploring relationships with friends, relationship with parents, relationships with siblings, relationship with Rabbanim. All these things start becoming, and how do I interact with them? Because how I am with other people, yes, it's not the same in a marriage, but that gives me a foundation, or that gives me an inkling of like how I might be in a relationship, what type of person I'm bringing myself into as in a relationship, and what I can expect me to react if I'm a guy who is life of the party, but my wife doesn't like it so much. How am I going to react when she tells me tune down? Or if I am one of those guys who likes to be at home and my wife wants me to go out, how do I react to her when she's pushing me to go out? How can we understand each other, and how can I let her know that this is who I am? And then bring each other's qualities to the table, that we are building this relationship based on our own personalities, where we're going to learn each other's personalities and mesh it together where we can be produce the best couple bubble that we can. And I think one of the another important thing is really and I want to really 2 more points, and I'm going to end. One of the more big myths that exist, and a few people reached out to me, is that fighting in marriage shouldn't happen. That's one, or never go to sleep angry at each other. That was another 2. Those are 2. Fights will happen in marriage, and sometimes going to sleep while fighting is important too. And I'll explain both of them. Fights will happen in marriage because we're dealing with two people who, especially in the beginning of marriage, where we're looking to learn from each other and understand each other. And there are practical things that will happen that we may have disagreements about. Now, these fights happen in marriages. Doesn't mean that my marriage is bad. It doesn't mean that also I have to be mavater and give into every fight. What that means is if I am in a couple bubble, if I'm together with my wife, how do I view a fight? Is it me against you? Or is it me and you against the problem? In other words, there's a reason, there's something that we're fighting about. There's something that we're arguing about. It could be about money. It could be about which yeshiva to send our kids to. It could be about who we should spend Yom Tov with, right? It's not me against you. We're in this together. We have to figure out how me and you together deal with the problem. Now, sometimes what ends up happening is that if we feel like we have to hash this out before we go to sleep, we have to get a solution before we go to sleep, we both get too tired. And if our brains get too tired, we can't keep that in mind. That it's me, and we start seeing us against each other. And therefore, sometimes it's maybe important to say, you know what, we spoke about this enough. Let me take a step back. And let's take a step back. Let's relax. Let's go to sleep. Let's distract ourselves and come back to this tomorrow. Maybe we'll think in a clearer way. Now, why I'm saying this is because one of the things that we can work on practically as we're going into marriage is to see ourselves. How do I communicate with other people? How do I share my life with other people? And how do I deal with when there is conflict, when there is something between me? Do I approach it in a way that I can solve this, that we can work on this, we can overcome this, or do I approach it in a way of, oh, I want to avoid conflict, I want to avoid issues, I'd rather give in? And that will, and understanding that, and then knowing how do I learn the effective ways to communicate my needs and work through a problem with other people can help me learn the skill that's important to get into marriage. The final thing I want to say, which is a lkaf zchus thing, and this is very important. And I learned this recently. It was fascinating because there's this phenomenon going on where supermarkets started selling salt water for Pesach. Now, salt water has two ingredients: salt and water. Anybody can do that. That's at least what I thought. Now it's like, I was like one of those, okay, like this is stupid. This is just the way a supermarket can make money. Then somebody made me aware of and said, when I see something like that, I ask myself, what's the story behind the person who's buying that? In other words, which person would be desperate enough that they need to buy salt water? And you could start coming up with a story of what's happening here. And she gave me an example. It's actually a Twitter exchange. It's on Twitter. But this person gave an example that her grandmother had arthritis and she couldn't peel oranges, but she loved oranges. So she would wait for people to come to her house to peel her oranges for her. So when this person went to the supermarket and saw pre-peeled oranges, she immediately thought of my grandmother. My grandmother would love this because she can now eat her oranges without having to peel it. Well, most of us look at peeled oranges and go, what type of spoiled person can't peel oranges? But we should look at it. What kind of story can I tell myself about the person who's engaging in this activity, that this activity can make sense? And when we start approaching life that way, first of all, we start seeing life in terms of experiences, not just in terms of black and white, of concrete things. This color, this experiences, and I can develop a story thinking in an experiential way of what's really happening in that other person. And I also see things from another person's perspective. So if I start practicing that and I start preparing myself for that in this way, when I get into my marriage and my wife does something to annoy me, and she will do things that will annoy me, what story can I tell myself of what's happening in her mind that will take this away from being annoying and may ultimately be able to see it, that she's not against me. She's with me, just she has her own perspective. And by me experiencing that story, and the more I learn about my life, the more I'll be able to tell these stories efficiently, will be able to give me a whole new experience in this experience called a relationship. There's a lot more, and if we can do a part 2, maybe we'll cover a lot more.
Yeah, after Pesach we can do a part 2.
I hope
it's very helpful.
This was an eye-opening experience, and I hope that came across clearly and we gained something from it. And if anybody has any questions, please feel free to.
So someone asked a question about how much money is important to have before getting married, but I think that we're going to say that unless you have something really quick to say on that. It's not really on the topic, but. It's on someone's
Yeah,
mind.
I'm not a financial planner. You have to call the financial planner for that.
We actually did a talk on financial planning for newlyweds, and I think it's a topic worth watching the recording, because it's not as simple, and it's also there's somewhat of hashkafa in there too, but put that aside.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's it for today. We went to about an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really want to thank you for this. I took a lot of notes on the side. So, and then we'll put that on the recording as well. We'll post some show notes.
Somebody did ask about a book. I just did want to throw out a suggestion. The book that I highly recommend, and most of the things that I spoke about are in that book. It's not a Jewish book, so the hashkafa is for sure not there. But most of the concepts I spoke about are there. It's called Wired for Love by Stan Tatkin.
By Stan who?
Tatkin, Tatkin. Really, really important book to read going into marriage. And most of the things that I spoke about are presented there in a way that I can actually are workable steps. And I think a really important book to read.
New to me. I'm excited to read that. Right. Yeah. So thank you. Like I said earlier, this talk was sponsored together with Mask. And if anyone needs any services from Mask, you can always reach out to them at 718-758-0500. They have referrals, support groups, and lots of other resources for any type of mental health issues in the full spectrum of life, children, marriage, and anything else. So that's from Mask. And Dr. Brachfeld, thank you so much for tonight's talk. I look forward to part 2.
So can I just interrupt? Somebody did ask a question.
Go ahead.
What's if I'm not naturally a leader? What is expected from the man? So just a quick answer to that is, no, what's expected from the man is to be himself and to cherish his wife and be there for his wife and show his wife that I am your security in your life. That's what's expected from the man. All the other things might be what society might put on us as men, or might be our own expectations as men. And we have to learn how to navigate that. But you don't need to be a leader. You need to be a caring, loving person who's there for his wife. I remember I spoke to you, Devora, about it, and I told you the story, and the story is important, I think. I know somebody who has a severe, severe stutter, doesn't talk to anybody. He does business via text. He loved LinkedIn because he was able to do business on LinkedIn and without having to talk. Text messaging, nothing about, he doesn't talk. He cannot speak for the life of us to nobody. When he got engaged to his wife, we all wondered how on earth is he going to manage a marriage if he has a severe stutter and doesn't speak. And I met him a bunch of times since I've kept up with him for many years. The one place in his life he does not have a stutter is with his wife. The one place where he feels so comfortable that his brain doesn't go haywire, that his words come out in a stutter, is him and his wife. That means he doesn't have to be the most articulate or a person, or nor did he have to change for the world around him. But him and his wife created something where they can feel comfortable with each other, that he doesn't feel pressure to talk to each other, to talk to her, that his words should just come out naturally. And that's what it means to be in a marriage. We're here for each other. You don't have to be the perfect man and the perfect provider and the perfect thing. You have to be in a relationship where we can both be ourselves and lean on each other all the time.
Amen. Amen. That's a nice way to end that. So once again, thank you. And the recording will be available on the website, and anything else that you want through Adai Ad, you can definitely send us questions for upcoming talks. That's Adai Ad, ADAIAD.org. And thank you all and good night.
Thank you.